Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wedge 52 Gridiron Podcast. I'm your host, Wedge. Today's episode is going to be the 10-minute report, Bills. Before we jump in today, please make sure to follow me here on Spotify, and as well as check out my Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron. If you haven't checked out any of the other episodes, 10-minute reports, please make sure you do that after listening to this one. And if you are unfamiliar, the 10-minute report series is where I take 20 minutes of study plus my already established knowledge to create a 10-minute podcast. With that being said, let's jump into today's episode, the 10-minute report on the Buffalo Bills. Starting off with the quarterback, they have quarterback Josh Allen, who we all know is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Last season, Josh Allen put up some good numbers once again with 4,283 passing yards, 35 passing touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Those numbers were all on 63.3% completion percentage. And then Josh Allen also had 762 yards and 7 touchdowns rushing. So, Josh Allen is able to do it, throwing the ball and running the ball. I would say he's probably, in terms of dual threat quarterbacks, probably third best in the league. That would be behind Mr. Lamar Jackson and behind Jalen Hurts. And then I would say Josh Allen is probably third in that category of dual threat quarterbacks. It definitely helps to have the good production for passing wise when you have a wide receiver like Stefon Diggs. Last year, Diggs had 1,429 yards along with 11 touchdowns. Stefon Diggs has really proven himself to be one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL. He has over 1,000 plus receiving yards in the last 5 seasons. That spans back with his time in Buffalo, as well as some of his time in Minnesota, where he started out his career. But behind Stefon Diggs, it could be very slim pickings, I guess, kind of for Buffalo wide receivers. Yes, they have Gabriel Davis, but Davis is very streaky in terms of his production. Last year, in total, he racked up 836 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then they also have wide receiver Khalil Shakir, who was a rookie last year and had 161 yards and 1 touchdown. So the wide receiver depth is definitely something of concern for the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, if Stefon Diggs stays healthy, he can kind of cover up the slack for that. For the lack of the rest of the wide receiver room. But if something were to happen to Diggs, that could potentially be an issue for them, a very obvious, very alarming issue, especially in the AFC, where it's going to be it's going to be a dogfight for the entire AFC that is absolutely stacked. There was a little bit of drama around the OTAs and Stefon Diggs being upset and not showing up and this and that. I think it is settled from what it looks like. Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs have both reciprocated to the media that they feel good about each other. They both want to be there. So I don't expect that to be an issue at the moment for Stefon Diggs. At the tight end position, that can kind of help with the receiving personnel. They already had Dawson Knox, who last year had 517 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then they used their first-round pick to draft Utah tight end Dalton Kincaid, 25th overall, this past April. Last season at Utah, Dalton Kincaid had 890 yards to go along with 8 touchdown receptions. So those two guys definitely are showing some talent from the tight end position. which can help Stephon Diggs. So do not be surprised if one of those two tight ends is the second leading targets this year and second leading receptions this year for the Bills. At the running back position, they did lose their starting running back from last year, Devin Singletary, but last year's rookie, James Cook, will be entering his second year, coming off a year with 507 rushing yards, along with 2 rushing touchdowns as a backup. So they're definitely hopeful for his production to increase with the starting role that he's now going to be fulfilling. I believe that James Cook is the younger brother or cousin of star free agent running back Dalvin Cook, who I want to say Dalvin Cook is one of very few, if not the only, to have 1,000+ rushing yards the past 4 years. I could be a little wrong on that number, but the running back situation is wild right now around the league. So that could potentially be a whole nother episode within itself at a later date, but we will see. Moving on with the 10-minute report for the Bills, I would say their offensive line is average. It's kind of led behind left tackle Deion Dawkins, who last year only allowed 3 sacks. So average offensive line, second-year running back, getting his first full season as a starter. Elite wide receiver and elite quarterback is the outlook for the Bills offense this year. Heading over to the defense from the Buffalo Bills, their defense is spectacular last season, and they retained almost all of those pieces, if I'm not mistaken. Last year, here are some of their defensive ranks. They were 4th in points per game allowed, only allowing 19.1 points per game. They were 7th in yards per game allowed with 319 yards per game. 6th in offensive third down completion percentage at 37.6%. And 2nd in allowed offensive red zone touchdown percentage at 45.6%. So their defense definitely helped them out last year. A very good defense, along with an elite quarterback wide receiver duo. We all saw that the Buffalo Bills were serious contenders for a while in last season before they ultimately lost in the playoffs. Some of those defensive stars, I'm going to just run through their numbers from last year so you guys are familiar or up to speed with them in case you weren't. First of all, they have defensive end Gregory Rousseau, who had 37 tackles, 8 sacks, and 10 tackles for a loss last year. Defensive lineman Ed Oliver had 34 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 9 tackles for a loss last season. Von Miller, outside linebacker, he had 21 tackles, 8 sacks, and 10 tackles for a loss in 11 games last season as a Bill before he tore his ACL. But Miller's been saying, and the Bills are hopeful, he should hopefully be able to return sometime in the early to mid-season of this 2023 campaign. Next, they have outside linebacker Leonard Floyd, who last year had 59 tackles, 9 sacks, and 10 tackles for a loss. And then they have middle linebacker Matt Milano, who had 99 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 12 tackles for a loss, 3 interceptions, and a touchdown last season. And then they have Tre'Davious White, who is getting a full offseason now, healthy. Last season, he only played in 6 games because he missed the beginning portion with an ACL injury. So he should be fully recovered now, was able to get in there, play for, a month and a half, and then playoffs, So he should be good. Expect Tre'Davious White to return to form. And then they also have safety Micah Hyde, who I believe actually missed the entirety of last season with some a neck/upper back injury. But he should also be good to go. So they're gaining those two guys. They put up, all those defensive ranks without, a very good corner and a pretty good safety. And then they also have safety Jordan Poyer, who last year had 63 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 8 passes defensed. So we're coming up on the 10-minute mark for this report, which leaves me with just one thing remaining. And that is my record prediction for the 2023 Buffalo Bills, where I predict they will go 10-5. That's all I have for the 10-minute report on the Buffalo Bills. Thank you guys all for listening. Please make sure to check out my other podcast episodes, as well as follow me here on Spotify and Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron. Thanks again, and go Ravens.